getting ready to crank this thing up, guys, so hang tight. What's up? What's up? Billy Carson here, aka Forbidden Knowledge. We want to get as many people on this tonight. We're going to talk about did the Anunnaki create humanity? So I'm going to send out a text message right quick. If you're not on my text message list, make sure you text me so you can get notifications. And also great giveaways, right? We just gave away that one-of-a-kind movie poster for the Black Knight satellite that was autographed by me. The one of one made for the documentary itself, which is an award-winning documentary. And so that was posted on Instagram. The winner was talked about on this account as well. And we've given away a Ford. We've given away a Rolls Royce. We're doing a raffle for a Mercedes. We've given away 6 MacBook Pros in the last couple of years. We've also given away Apple TVs and Roku devices. So text me, text hashtag giveaway to 954-245-0086. That's 954-245-0086. And I'm going to go ahead and drop a text message to everyone who's in that database right now. Let them know I'm online and what the topic is about tonight. All right. All you guys fill up in the chat. Make sure you share this video. Make sure you like this video. And make sure you click that like button, please. Click that like button. Let's get the old algorithm going here and make sure that we get this video seen everywhere possible. Got to catch that algorithm sometimes. If you don't catch the algorithm too quick, the video doesn't do that good. So we got to catch the algorithm. So please share the video, like the video, and I'm going to drop this text message right quick, which I just did. And we're going to get this party started. Talking about the Anunnaki tonight. All right. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be an amazing talk. Then I got to hop off of this and hop on Black Magic's account as well to talk about some other things tonight in the quantum realm. So it's going to be a great night. Going to be a long night for me because I still have to pack for my trip. Somehow I'm going to get through all of this and get it all done. All right. So let's check out the chat room right now. See who we got in the chat. All right. I see the chat filling up quick. Oh, Cynthiny. What's up, Cynthiny? Cynthiny went to Egypt with us in 2022, October of 2022. She was one of the Billy Boot Camp, leaders. And so actually, I think you might have given it the name Billy Boot Camp, Cynthiny. But it was called the Billy Boot Camp because of how much walking we did, how much climbing and hiking we did throughout Egypt into pyramids, ancient sites, shafts of pyramids, underneath areas and hidden crypts at Dendera. It was an amazing trip, and they started calling it the Billy Boot Camp. But if you want to go to Egypt with me again this year, October, make sure you click that link. It'll be in the caption of this video. We're going to be going back in October of this year, October 2023. It's going to be an amazing, amazing tour. We have 2 tours this time because one tour wasn't enough. We couldn't. So many people wanted to go. We said, okay, we'll break it up into 2. So we're going to do a first tour for 10 days. And then we're going to do a second tour right after that for 5 days. We're like 4.5 days. So for people who can't be away from their kids or their work or whatever that long, you have a shorter trip, which will encompass some of the, stuff right around Giza, like the Giza Plateau, the Great Pyramid, the Red Pyramid, the Bent Pyramid, Saqqara, where we'll go to the Step Pyramid, and then go into the underground area of of that, what I call the halls of Amenti, which is called the Serapeum, and probably to the Egyptian Museum of Civilization, and maybe even over to Memphis, which used to be the former capital of Egypt, where there's a megalithic statue there of Ramses. And then boom, you're done, and you're coming back home again, right? A compact, small trip. The 10-day tour is massive and elaborate. We have a cruise. We have we have our own cruise ship with just all the people from Forbidden Knowledge on the ship, nobody else. We have private access to a lot of the stuff, like we'll go private access to the Great Sphinx, private access to the Great Pyramid. It's going to be a mind-boggling tour. Abu Simbel, we're going to go to Dendera, the Temple of Seti in Abydos, and you're going to see technology in the hieroglyphs. It's going to be mind-blowing. DJ Quicko rocked the Donnie Arcade Anunnaki song. Wow. Yeah, you got to look up that song, Anunnaki by Donnie Arcade. I produced that song back in 2016. It was actually one of our very first hits. Thanks, DJ Quicko. It's going to be an amazing trip, an amazing tour. You don't want to miss it. Right after that, we're going to go to Cambodia. So I'm taking people on a tour to Cambodia. If you want to know more about this, go to forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.com. I'll drop it in the comment feed for you real quick. And click on tours. You can come to Cambodia and see some of the most amazing sights you'll ever see with your eyes at Angkor Wat, the largest temple complex in the world. We'll hike through the jungle to other amazing temples. And you'll get to see the most amazing sights that hardly any human being has ever seen before. All right, so go to forbiddenknowledge.com. I just dropped a link in the comment box. Click on that link and go to tours and see if you want to go to either the 10-day for Egypt trip, the 4-day Egypt trip, it's really 4.5 days, or the tour to Cambodia, which is a 5-day tour of Cambodia to some of the most ancient sites, Tao Prom, Angkor Wat, some of the most incredible places you'll ever see. Pictures do them no justice. Literally, pictures do them absolutely no justice. You have to see these things in person. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find this short 30-second clip from Egypt real quick and run that before we get into the Anunnaki, since Egypt is all really about the Anunnaki. That's literally what it really is all about. Let's see here. According to the, when you look into the Emerald Tablets, it basically says that Thoth, the Atlantean priest king who ruled over the land of Kem before it was called Egypt for 14,000 years, claimed to have built the Great Pyramid. I'm looking for this short clip here real quick that I could run for you guys on our little trip to Egypt. Little some of the highlights. Let's see. I think this is it here. Listen, that tour was fire. Okay. It was mind blowing. We had a great time. At the end of that tour, bonds were created for life, friends for life. 70 amazing souls went with us on that trip. And we are all still great friends till this very day. There's been a lifetime bond that was created from that trip. And at the end of that tour, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Everybody was teared up, young, old, man, female, didn't matter. Everybody got emotional. And we had a great time. I was the tour guide. We had a lot of security out there as well. So if you want to go, you want to find out more, I dropped the link in the comment feed. I'll drop it one more time. Make sure you register for the Forbidden Tour, the Forbidden Tour of Egypt. If you want to know about the Anunnaki firsthand and see what they did, what they built, what they created, the architectural templates that they laid down for mankind to use, the systems that they put into place, the history of how they engaged mankind on this planet, it's all right there. All you got to do is hop on a plane. And no, you don't need the Jabberwocky for that. There's no Jabberwocky, if you know what I mean, not required. No testing required. All you got to do is hop on a plane and go there, hop on a plane and come back home. That's it. Unless you're from another country that requires you to have that to come back home. But as far as from the United States, it's just like going around the corner. All right. Just like going around the corner. So I'm going to get into this talk tonight. We're going to be talking about the Anunnaki. We're going to be talking about, did they create humans? So there's been a misconception going around for a very, very long time in the way that people have stated and talked about these Anunnaki beings, which are really they are the Atlanteans. Okay. So when you hear Atlanteans and you hear Anunnaki, we're talking about the same people. See, Anunnaki means those that came from heaven to earth or from another place to this planet, from space to this planet. Any being from any planet, anywhere in the known universe that comes to earth is an Anunnaki. Okay, it's a generalized term. Just like if you were me, right? I live in Florida. I live in a city in Florida, right? So let's say Fort Lauderdale, Florida. If I hopped on a spaceship and went to another planet and people were there and they said, well, where are you from? I'm not going to say I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm going to say I'm an earthling from Earth, you see? And so it's a generalized name, is what it is. Now, Atlantean is a specific name of the type of civilization that they built. They built an Atlantean civilization on this planet. And I personally believe after many decades of research and investigation, reading over 1,000 cylinder scrolls, tablets, papyruses, ancient texts, and so forth, visiting with ancient sages and wisdom keepers and archaeologists all around the world, my personal hypothesis now is that it's not just Earth that was Atlantis. It was also the moon, and it extended all the way to Mars and maybe even beyond. They were an interplanetary civilization, not just a ring city in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that sunk. That was just one capital of many capitals that existed on this planet. But they, in fact, were an interplanetary civilization. They had achieved what we would hope to achieve in the future. But you have to remember, according to these ancient tablets, they were approximately 1 million years ahead of us technologically, making anything that they do or did or still do to this day appear to be magic. When a more advanced civilization meets and engages a less advanced civilization, the less advanced civilization will deify the more advanced civilization. It's called a cargo cult. And what you have here on this planet, you have humanity, which is one gigantic 8 billion person cargo cult. That's what we've become. And the deities and everything else that we're worshiping and praying to are not the creator of the universe. There is not one book that exists on this planet, and I've gone through so many more to go through now, don't get me wrong, that is authored by the hand of God itself. I don't want to say him, because him will be an incorrect terminology. You don't give a creator of a universe a gender. There is no gender. God is a frequency. And so what we're saying here is this: the text is written by flesh and blood people, except for one text that I know of. There's only one text that's written by one of these beings, and it's the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I wrote my book about this gentleman, right? Look up Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. That's my book. In there, I talk about the guy who wrote his own tablets. He authored them himself. He didn't have a scribe write them. The rest of these tablets and scrolls and everything else were authored by scribes, people that one of these entities would dictate to. They called themselves gods, but they weren't gods. They masqueraded as gods, but they themselves even knew that there was something above them, because they said the creator of all will answer. They will have to answer to the creator of all for what they've done to people on this planet. So they themselves knew that they weren't the creators of the universe, because they called several times in the tablets on the creator of all, knowing that there was something higher than them. And so they duped humanity. Some were nice, some were malevolent, some were benevolent. Some were good, some were evil. Yin, there's yang. Some wanted to help, some didn't want to help. Some tried to kill us off, some tried to save us. You can find this in all these different epics: Epic of Gilgamesh, Epic of Atrahasis, the Enuma Elish, and the 7 tablets of creation. These texts predate most texts that exist on the planet, with the exception of the animal tablets, some of the Vedas, and maybe the only thing that will come even close to a written handed down text would be the Mahabharata, right? And so the misconception, let me get back to my point that I was talking about, is there's this misconception between people that are following the ancient astronaut theory, is that the Anunnaki created humans. Now, we have to be careful on how we state this, because according to the text, they didn't create humans. In other words, they didn't just from scratch, out of absolutely nothing, poof, there's humans here through some type of magic or alchemy or something like that, or did they have the creation power? They used genetic manipulation, which we're going to take a look at tonight. We're going to take a look into genetic manipulation that was done in ancient times. And this is one of the very first accounts of this evidence of genetic manipulation. But going forward into the future, even into what you call the modern day Bible, you find genetic manipulation when it comes to Mary, the mother of Yeshua, aka Jesus. I don't like calling him Jesus, because Jesus means hail Zeus, and I'm not hailing Zeus. I'm talking about a real person, Yeshua, which is his real name, right? Yeshua was also a product of genetic manipulation through something called vitro fertilization, as well as his grandmother, who was also a virgin birth, which they never tell you about that in Bible study, that Jesus's grandmother, right? Yeshua's grandmother was a virgin birth. You never hear about it. They never talk to you about that in Bible study. Not once have you ever heard that come out of anybody's mouth, except for me, forbidden knowledge. Look it up. Make sure you get all your apocrypha texts, the text that was by accident on purpose forgotten to be put into the Bible by the Council of Nicaea. That's where you find all the incredible truths at, right? In the book of Enoch, he was such an important person that he was spoken about in the Bible, but his book, which talks about these same Anunnaki beings, left out. The Bible talks about the Anunnaki. They call them the Anak in the Old Testament. They say the people that ran into these Anak say that in their eyes, we were grasshoppers in their sight. That's coming from the Bible, the canonized Bible that you take and read and pray to and everything else, right? So these are the Anunnaki, they exist. And these beings, these people that are in these Sumerian tablets, their names are in the Bible as well, but nobody ever reads the Bible, so they wouldn't even know. We're going to touch on some of this stuff tonight. All right? So I'm going to pull up this PowerPoint. We're going to go over a couple things tonight. We're going to talk about the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation, which is an ancient text, a super ancient text. Now, even though the text is quoted to be approximately about 6,000 to 7,000 years old, it's much older than that, because it's copied tablets from older copied tablets, because you have to continue the information on and on and on for the next civilization. So even tablet 5, which was just discovered at Somalia in Iraq, was re-added to the 7. But you can tell by the cuneiform, it's thousands of years old. But the story of it comes from even deeper antiquity. And how do we know this? Because we found multiple copies of the Enuma Elish that have different year dating on them. In one, it mentions a planet named Nibiru. In a newer version, which is about 5,000 years old, Nibiru's name was changed to Marduk, because Marduk wanted to be the destroyer. So it's pretty interesting stuff. These are the 7 tablets of creation. When you read the Old Testament of the Bible, the majority of the information in the very beginning of Genesis is coming from these 7 tablets. separating the waters from the waters, right? Bringing up the dry land. These are words, these are statements that are copied almost word for word directly from super ancient texts and put into the Bible in Genesis. And then people are running around going, oh man, this is the word of God. No, it's the word of man. It's the word of M-A-N. Okay, M-A-N, that wrote this down as a scribe from beings that were here, that were also, in my opinion, M-E-N, men and women, that weren't any gods. They were just more highly technologically advanced, maybe even more spiritually advanced. They probably had a combination of spiritual and technological advancements that they merged together, giving them godlike powers to a person that's, using copper chisels and chicken bones to build houses. It looks like magic. Looks like magic to them. You got it? So we're going to dig into this a little bit. All right. So we're talking about, I'm looking up because I'm looking over the camera, by the way. He's like, why is he looking up like that? Because I'm looking above the camera to a screen behind the camera. The Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. The Enuma Elish, which is really the way to pronounce it. You could say Elish as well, more Americanized, right? Is the Babylonian creation myth. It was recovered by Austin Henry Layard in 1849 in the ruined library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh, which is in Mosul, Iraq. That's the cradle of civilization, okay? That is the cradle of civilization, Iraq, where it's located right now. And this is a whole other podcast I'm going to get into, that Africa extended all the way up into that region back then. Remember, bordering countries are just made by invisible lines created by men. But if you read ancient tablets, you discover that Africa had extended way up into what now is called Arabia. All right. And published by George Smith in 1876. 1876, the Enuma Elish was first published, translated and published in 1876. What does that mean? Why am I saying that so many times? Well, a lot of people tend to think that these tablets are just fabrications of Zecharia Sitchin, a guy who wrote many, many books, amazing books about the Anunnaki. And they said, and in their claims, which you can find all over YouTube and the internet, that he was the only person that could translate this text. And he was the only one who knew the story. And he just made up the story and blah, 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 blah. That's all false. Matter of fact, Zecharia Sitchin didn't translate any tablets. He clearly states in his book, in all of his books, exactly where he got his information, what the sources were. And the Enuma Elish is a main part of his sources of information to write his books, as he quotes in the actual paragraph where he's quoting words from the Enuma Elish, and that wasn't translated by him. Zecharia Sitchin translated absolutely nothing. What he did was he put together the pieces of the puzzle and painted a picture and created stories about these beings in this time frame to the best of his ability. Was he 100% accurate? Probably not, but nobody is. We can only get as close to the truth as possible, and then we can only lay out our hypotheses on what may have happened based on data that we've collected from different sources, which is exactly what he did. It's very important to understand that what I'm reading to you now, what I'm talking about now, is not based on the work of Zecharia Sitchin. It's based on the work of scholars that came long before he was even thought of. He wasn't even in his dad's scrotum yet. So let's just clear the air with the whole Sitchin stuff. Published by George Smith, 1876, the Enuma Elish has about 1,000 lines. It's recorded in Old Babylonian on 7 clay tablets, each holding between 115 and 170 lines of Sumero-Akkadian cuneiform script. Most of Tablet 5 had never been recovered until recently, and Tablet 5 was discovered at the Sumalai Museum in Iraq, as I talked about earlier. This epic is one of the most important sources for understanding the Babylonian worldview, centered on the supremacy of Marduk. Who is Marduk? When you go into the Egyptian text, you find out that Marduk is Amen-Ra. Yeah. When you say amen, that's who you say an amen to. This guy, one of the most evil, brutal dudes of all time. All right. Who also masqueraded as a god and made statements that made it into the Bible, like, I'm a jealous God. There'll be no other God but me, and all that. That's the guy right there. He's also in the Jewish Torah, which I'm going to show you on this tonight. He says, and the creation of humankind for the service of the gods. The creation of humankind for the service of the gods. Its primary original purpose, however, is not an exposition of theology or theology, but the elevation of Marduk. The guy had a big ego, the chief god of Babylon, above all other Mesopotamian gods. There'll be no other god but me. This guy says this in the tablets. It's even in the Egyptian text. This guy was so jealous of everyone and all, what they were really his relatives, these other Atlantean kings that were ruling over Atlantean cities in different parts of the planet. He didn't want the people on the entire planet worshiping any of them, only focusing strictly on him. And what he ordered was, he ordered people to go around and start defacing the face of all the other gods, including Akhenaten, who was the pharaoh that was in the rule at one point when he was controlling the planet. And he told Akhenaten to have every one of his people go and start defacing everything. That's why the faces are chipped off. They got chipped off in ancient times. And when you go to Egypt with me, you'll learn these things. None of this stuff was chipped off because they didn't want people to know that black people weren't in Egypt. That's actually a falsehood that I actually believed in myself back in the day, until I did what? I got my passport stamp. And when you get your passport stamp and you go places, you find out the truth. And when you start digging into the ancient text, you start finding out the truth of where the origins of a lot of these problems are. That's why you can dig up a statue that's 5,000 years old, and when you dig it up, the face is chipped off. It has nothing to do with white and black. It has everything to do with this guy right here, Marduk. When you hear the word God during this lecture that I'm giving you tonight, keep in mind I'm not talking about the creator of the universe. I'm referencing the Anunnaki beings that masqueraded as gods with a lowercase g and were worshipped not only by the Sumerians, but by many civilizations that they themselves had kickstarted, okay? The Anunnaki list exists as various copies from Babylonia and Assyria, and the version of the Library of Ashurbanipal dates back to the 7th century BCE, and the composition of text probably dates back to the Bronze Age, at the time of Hammurabi, or perhaps even earlier in the Kassite era. This is tablet 5 that was recently discovered at the Somalia Museum in Iraq, and it now has been added to the collection. You can see these tablets at the British Museum in London, which I went to and visited when I was there last year in 2022. And what's interesting is we know that our ancient ancestors had come in contact with these beings because, for one, the Dogon tribe had directly interacted with these beings because they knew this. They knew this order of planets, the shapes, the sizes, the rotational periods, the orbital cycles. They knew the position of the axis and what degree angle of tilt, the colors of the planets. The Dogon, these people right here, they knew all of that. How did they get this knowledge? How in the world did they get this information? According to them, it was the Anunnaki beings that they call the Nomo. These Nomo beings, they came from Sirius B. These are Anunnaki Atlantean people that came from Sirius B, and they engaged these Dogon beings, people, and they taught them everything about multiple star systems, trinary orbital patterns of a trinary star system light years away, and all the knowledge of all the planets in our solar system. And I mean complete knowledge too. Orbital cycles, angles on axis, degree of tilt, the colors, the shapes, the sizes. They knew all of that long before what we call modern science knew anything. If you go to the Jewish American Library, right? JewishVirtualLibrary.org is how you can pull it up. JewishVirtualLibrary.org. Because people say, well, how come I don't see these people's names in any of this, the Torah and all these other? Well, first of all, the Torah and the Bible, that's New Age information. Because I found texts that's 10 times older than them, eons older than this text, right? And so you look at this New Age information, it's only a couple thousand years old or so. But you look in there, guess what you find? Look, I just pull up one. I just said Marduk, find Marduk. His name is all over the place. That's Amun-Ra in the Torah. He's all over the place. He's everywhere. Look how many times his name shows up on one page. This is the book that is read by the Jews, right? The Torah, the Ethiopian Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews, This guy is in their book, calling out orders, claiming to be God, telling people what to do, trying to rule over human beings. Clear as day. How come they're not talking about this at Bible study or temple? How come this should be the main topic of discussion, but it never is, not once. There's some images I want to show you, which I'm going to go back to. But when you look at this is an image that I took. This is my very first image that I took from the Mars rover. This is back in 2000, around 2010, 11, somewhere in there, from worldwidetelescope.org. One of the very first images I ever found. And what's interesting is when you read the Enuma Elish, the 7 tablets of creation, it talks about a fact that these beings kickstarted a civilization on Earth, and they kickstarted a civilization on Mars. They had 2 civilizations running concurrently. The people on Mars were called Igigi, I-G-I-G-I, Igigi, right? Weird spelling, weird name. And then on Earth, they were just the Anunnaki. But what's interesting is these Igigi were Anunnaki beings, Atlanteans, whatever you want to call them, but they were like the working class people. So they were there, according to tablets, not according to Billy Carson. They were digging canals, they were building structures, they were mining for resources and everything else, but they were doing it for hundreds of thousands of years, and it was wearing them out. And they started getting angry that they felt like they were becoming slaves. They felt like they were literally becoming slaves. When you look at this image, I highlighted a few things here that just don't look like rocks to me. They didn't look like rocks. And so I highlighted them. All I did was highlight them and expand them so you can clearly see what they are exactly. I'm not too sure, but I do know they don't look like rocks to me, which leads me to believe that these texts are telling the truth, that there was a concurrent civilization on Mars, same time running on Earth. This is Cydonia, another amazing image from a satellite image that we took flyover on Mars from an area or region called Cydonia. Now, why did they call the Cydonia? This thing looks like a giant lion, right? This is a massive area spanning a lot of miles. You can see there's a 5-sided pyramid, the face on Mars that was discovered, right? And what looks like other pyramid structures along the back of this thing. You can see how the face, the 5-sided pyramid, the D&M pyramid makes the nose. This is geo-landscaping on a large scale. You have to have, to do this, you have to have technology to carve this many miles of land and terrain to turn it into this image. And what's amazing is Cydonia means Cairo in ancient tongue. So they're calling this Cairo. They always know what's going on. They always hide the truth in plain sight. So let's talk about the translation, right? You have George Smith, okay, 1840 to 1876. Was an English Assyriologist, apprentice engraver, but self-taught in cuneiform in the corridors of the British Museum. Eventually, he was hired by Sir Henry Rawlinson, a prominent archaeologist, and Smith achieved worldwide attention when he discovered an account of the flood with obvious biblical parallels in 1872. Zechariah Sitchin wasn't born yet, guys. Related in the Chaldean account of the deluge, this book expands on the previous work and presents numerous translations of tablets, including the first print and appearance of the Epic of Gilgamesh. You also have E.A. Spicer, another person here, long before Zechariah Sitchin. In 1926, E.A. Spicer won a Guggenheim Fellowship to study the remains of the ancient Mitanni and Hurrians in northern Mesopotamia. While there in 1927, he discovered the Tepe Guara, one of the world's earliest cradles of civilization, and in 1928, he was appointed assistant professor of Semitics at the University of Pennsylvania and a full professor in 1931. He was the field director and joint excavation of the American Schools of Oriental Research and the University Museum in 1930 to 1932 and 1936 to 1937. Undertaking excavations at Tepe Guara, Tel Bila, he also translated the Hurrian legal text found at Nutsi. After the war, he returned to the University of Pennsylvania, where he was chairman of the Department of Oriental Studies from 1947 until his death in 1965. He was also appointed Ellis Professor of Hebrew and Semitic Languages and Literatures there in 1954. He translated and wrote extensive commentary for the volume on Genesis in the Anchor Bible series and was one of the editors of the Torah in the New Jewish Publication Society of America version of the Old Testament. A noted student of his, Marsh Greenberg, became the Israel Prize Laureate in Bible Studies. These are the people that translated these tablets and these texts. These ain't no idiots, okay? So for anybody, let me move this down. Let me pull this down for a second. Let me minimize it, because I got to say something. For anybody who's claiming that these texts are hogwash and these people don't know what they're talking about, and you think you got a higher IQ than these people, the two guys I just read to you, IQs are off the charts. These two guys are the most revolutionary scholars of all time in terms of ancient history and ancient tablets and texts. Period. So if you think you got a higher IQ than these guys, then you need to let's have a debate, because you probably, first of all, let's do an IQ test. Number one, let's take the IQ test and see where you're at. Let's see how many languages you can actually speak. I can dabble in 5 languages right now. Pretty good, too. How many languages can you speak? How many ancient texts and tablets have you translated for the world to be able to have knowledge and wisdom and understanding? 0. So these people have real credentials. And real credentials, to me, they override anybody out there talking anything crazy, and especially people who have no passport stamps, period. When you have no passport stamps, you can't even step to me and say anything. You can't even say hello. Next. Let's take a look at this one here before I go on to more tablet. Leonard William King. And he was an English archaeologist and Assyriologist, educated at Rugby School and King's College in Cambridge. He collected stone inscriptions widely in the Near East, taught Assyrian and Babylonian archaeology at King's College for a number of years, published a large number of works on these subjects. He's also known for his translations of ancient works such as the Code of Hammurabi. He became an assistant to the keeper of Egyptian and Assyrian antiquities at the British Museum. Here's some of his works. First Steps in Assyrian, a book for beginners, being a series of historical, mythological, religious, magical, epistolary, and other texts printed in cuneiform characters with interlinear transliteration and translation of a sketch of Assyrian grammar, sign lists, and vocabulary. Letters and inscriptions of Hammurabi, Encyclopedia Biblica, Egypt and Western Asia in the light of recent discoveries, chronicles concerning early Babylonian kings, legends of Babylonia and Egypt in relation to Hebrew tradition. The 7 tablets of creation is his translation, or the Babylonian Assyrian legends concerning the creation of the world and mankind, the Code of Hammurabi. These are the kind of people that are translating these texts. It's not it's not what you think. It's not people who are just sitting around in a robe and slippers with a prepaid track phone trying to figure out what these things said. That's not what's happening. It's real work being done here. It had been done a very, very long time ago. Let's take a look at how cuneiform is actually written by Mr. Finkel at the British Museum.
Which is a Semitic tongue related to the modern languages of Hebrew and Arabic and Aramaic. The writing system which Cyrus's officials used was the traditional cuneiform script, which had been invented in ancient Iraq well before 3000 BC. It is written by pressing a stylus, something a bit like a chopstick, into the surface of the clay, which is nearly dry, and the signs which convey the sound of the language consist of different arrangements of these strokes. They're written one by one, and the reader has to join them up, and the sound emerges from the clay. This is the line that says, I am Kurash, Shar Kishati, king of the world, the great king, king of Babylon, and so it goes on. So we're going to write Kurash. So the first sign, Ku, has a big vertical, 2 small horizontals, 1 bigger horizontal, a little vertical, and another horizontal, like a box. This is Ku. Then Ra, we have 3 strong horizontals to begin, 1 big one next to it, and then 1 little vertical wedge, and 1 bigger vertical wedge. Ku, Ra. Now we do Ash, which is 3 long horizontals, Komsa, and then a vertical in the middle. So we can read this, Ku, Ra, Ash, the name of Cyrus.
All right. So move this out of here. So you see the difficulty in writing this text. That's just a small sample of just writing a few words. Can you imagine how much effort it takes to write thousands and thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of lines of that text? It was a very, very, very important job. You were truly honored to be able to write that information, to be able to even have the knowledge on how to do it, how to use that stylus in the wet clay. And then you were truly honored to be able to take it, from somebody that was dictating it to you. It was a high level honor. It was considered like the highest level you can think of if you were to think of a higher level honor today, like getting a special star or a special award, whatever the highest level you can think. That's what it was for these people. Also, they took it so seriously that they made sure they got everything to as accurate as they possibly could. When you're reading these stone tablets, you're looking backwards in time and you're getting as close as you can possibly get to the actual information. You're getting the closest you can get to the truth. You can never get to the absolute truth. That's impossible. And if anybody tells you can, they're lying to you. If anybody says this is the absolute truth, they're lying. But you can get very close because you know the care, the dedication, the understanding, the mindset of these people in their glory of having the capability and the honor of writing this stuff. They were doing the absolute best. They gave you 100% of whatever they can give you. And so when you read these ancient texts, which are baked clay, which turns into stone, you're as close as you can possibly get to information that was issued and given out in ancient times. And another thing about these tablets, you can't change what they say. You cannot change a stone tablet. You can't alter these stone tablets. You can't make it say spaceship. You can't make it say, genetic modification. You can't make it say these things. You can't. There's no way rock Photoshop in the third dimension that you can have a clay mold into something else, a tablet mold into something else. What you're looking at is what was written. Whether you want to admit to yourself or not, these people were talking about some super advanced technology in the ancient times, far, far beyond what we have right now. Far, far beyond. Okay? I mean, extremely far beyond as well. Let's take a look at something here. I'm going to read from this computer here, from one of these, from some information from the Enuma Elish. See if I can pull this up here. Hold on a second. Let's see if I got the right area here. Hold on one second. Let's see. Just had it up here. I want to find this section which is talking about some of the creation aspects from the Enuma Elish without having to go through the whole doggone tablet, because that's a lot of text. And it's very interesting. Let's see here. But there's so much text here. It's incredible. Just so much text. Let me go to the top. Let's see if I can find it by search. Just look for Adamu, which is the first man. Okay. The Elohim. Elohim is a plural term. Even in the Bible, it's a plural term. They try to pretend like it's a singular term, but Elohim, the Elohim is the same thing as the Netiru of ancient Kemet. The Netiru, the Elohim, they're the same exact people. The pantheon of Sumeria, same exact people. Same exact people. I'm talking about a group of ancient people that had supreme tech and supreme knowledge. The Elohim said this, and this is what made it into the Bible. This is in the Enuma Elish, which predates the Bible. The people in the Bible weren't even in their papa's sacks yet, okay? They didn't even exist as a chromosome yet. They didn't even have a chromosome yet. They weren't even thought of yet. Let us make man in our image and our likeness. Does that sound familiar to you? Let us make man in our image and our likeness. Isn't that interesting? That you can find this in text that predates the Bible by tens of thousands of years. So, according to these tablets, this took place some 455,000 years ago. And but that was when they got here. But the creation of the Adamu took place around 300,000 years ago to 200,000 years ago. And that's when Homo erectus suddenly changed into Homo sapien, according to modern science. The process by which fashioning of the primitive worker was achieved is then described in the Atrahasis epic, as well as in several other texts. It involved obtaining from the blood of the god his tima. Okay, tima, that's probably his DNA. Scholars translate as personality or life essence, and mixing it with the ti'it of the Abzu. The term ti'it has been presumed to come from the Akkadian word tit, which equals clay, which is why it talks about using clay in the Bible. Hence the notion echoed in the Bible that Adam was fashioned from clay, but it's not exactly what it meant. They manipulated that terminology to get you to believe that somebody picked up some dirt and turned it into a human being. I would never want to be considered that I was just turned from dirt into a person. That means I was just a lump of mud. Now I'm a person. To me, that's not magical. To me, that's just dumb. Anyway, the life essence of personality of these gods was mixed with the essence of the existing being, found here on this planet at the Abzu, which is in Africa. By mixing genes extracted from the blood of a god with the essence of the existing earthly being, the Adam was genetically engineered. So the topic of this is, did the Anunnaki create mankind? In a way, yes, but creation from zero, just from scratch, no. What they did was our cousins were already here. We had cousins here. According to these tablets, these beings came to this planet. They saw us. They didn't even care. They were like, whatever, let them do what they're doing. We're going to go ahead and start building this breakaway civilization on this planet, mining these resources and building this civilization out. They had their floor plans. They had their street grid. They had everything they wanted to do laid out beforehand. It's all talked about in the tablets. And Lil said, I'm going to create the plan for all time on this planet. They started doing their work. They went right to work. They never touched us, never interact, never messed with us. But in the Enuma Elish and the Atrahasis epic, something very interesting happens, which goes back to Mars. These EGG beings, which were also related to these Anunnaki people, these Atlanteans on Earth, they said, man, we're doing too much work. Like, you got us out here laboring like slaves, and when we ask for breaks, you don't give us any breaks. How long did they work? According to the tablets, they labored for around 250 to 300,000 years, nonstop, generation after generation. They just kept working, building. No breaks, no real rest, being worked like slaves. Finally, and read this in the Atrahasis and also in the Enuma Elish, they say, you know what, man, this is getting to be too much, you know? I think they think we're slaves here, and we're not slaves, so we need to go ahead and get some straightening. So these beings, these EGG people, they got together while on Mars. They had a discussion about it. They said, well, time to go to war. Time to go to war against the gods of Earth. That's Anu, who was the father, and then Enlil and Ea Enki. That was the Trinity right there. All right, those three people were running the planet. So what did they do? They got in their ships and they fell from Mars to Earth. They came from Mars to Earth. These are the gods that fell from heaven to earth in the Bible to go against God, to go against Anu, not the creator of the universe, God, to go against Anu, A-N-U. They show up in Adam's calendar in South Africa, which back then was called the Abzu. They go to the location where they are in the middle of the night, and they encircle the camp. Read this in the tablets. Read it. They encircle the camp. And then everybody begins to wake up because somebody comes and bang, 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 bang on the door. Like, get up, we here. And like, who's that rabble on my door? What's that rabble on my door? They call it rabble on the door in the tablets. They begin to get up and look around. The guards now are waking up. Everybody's looking around like, oh man, the Gigi are here. They don't look too pleased. They don't look too happy. They got weapons. Anu and Lil Enki, they come outside. The war is getting ready to happen. Enki comes up with an idea, says, I have an idea that might fix the problem. There is an existing, keyword, existing being on this planet. They're talking about our cousins. Before we became Homo sapien sapien, we were already here. Already. But we weren't Homo sapien sapien, and we weren't monkeys either. We were advanced people. We were smart people. We were just more spiritually in tune with the planet and ourselves. We weren't, we weren't like we are now with disconnected DNA. They disconnected our DNA and all this other good stuff. And so they said, Enki says, in the tablets, he says, we will take our essence and combine it with their essence. And then we will make them into the workers. They will bear the load of the Anunnaki. And that's exactly what started to begin. So they went into this, they came to an agreement, and the EG just said, okay, look, if you guys are really going to do this, we won't go to battle right now. We got you outgunned right now because there's a lot of workers, a lot of us, and not that many of you guys. And if you decide to, we could take you out right now. We're far away from the home planet. There's nothing anybody can do. This is like the Wild Wild West out here. We can do whatever the hell we want. So they're like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and let you do this. All right. And so now, very good point Kelvin brings up here. And thank you for the donation. The Anunnaki had considered, one of their considerations was artificial people. AI, sound familiar? Artificial beings, sounds a lot like robotic AI. And the brother said, no. They had a few of them in the medical place that they had. There's a medical city they established to help with the workers. But they said that if we have too many, then what will they need us for? What happens when they realize they don't need us? Even they knew back then that robotic AIs, too many of them, was dangerous. So they decided not to do the robotic AI. They decided to start tampering with genetics, organics. So they genetically modified the existing hominid. Now, what they did initially, if you read these tablets, they didn't come to the first successful Homo sapien right away. They didn't even come to a Homo sapien right away. They began to clone these people that were already here, genetically modify them with their DNA and everything, disconnect some of their DNA, get them to understand their language and be obedient, and they had them starting to do labor. But the problem in the tablets was this. These people couldn't reproduce on their own. It's just like when you take a tiger and a lion, you get a tigon, or a lion and a tiger, you get a tigon. A lion and a tiger that mate they can mate with something, but they're never going to be able to give birth. They're never going to get anybody pregnant or give birth to anything, right? They're bare. They're barren. They can't do it. Same thing was happening with our cousins. They said, damn, this is a slow process. We need an army of people now. These Igigi, they're going to come back and they're going to be pissed. They're going to destroy us. They're going to destroy us. And Chris Jackson, did the Anunnaki kill off the dinosaurs? Yes, they did, because they needed to make way for the workforce and the civilizations that they were building out here on this planet. They talk about using a directed asteroid attack or directed comet strike. So this is pretty interesting. So they're like, we gotta speed this process up. Isis comes up with an idea. She says, you know what? I'm gonna take the egg out of one of these beings. We're gonna add our essence to it. I'm gonna put that in my womb and carry it to term. So this was the first of the genetic experiment that led to the Homo sapien. There's a famous cylinder scroll at the British Museum with Isis holding up the baby, saying, my hands have created it. The first Adamu, which means first man. The Adamu, which means first man. And so she put this egg in her womb. Now, creating an egg in this way, or in fertilization in that way, is called creating a zygote in modern genetics, or what we call modern genetics today. She created a zygote. She inserted it into her womb. It attached. She went 10 months, according to the tablets, not 9, gave birth to Adamu. After she gave birth to Adamu, once they got it to a mature state, they then had him begin to mate with some of these other beings that they had already been tampering with. Didn't work. Mating didn't work. Mating didn't work. They kept trying to mate. This is in the Eden, E-D-I-N. It clearly states in the tablets it's E-D-I-N, Eden. In the Bible, it's Eden. Isn't that interesting? Eden was a gigantic outdoor laboratory with guards. The same guards that they talk about in the Sumerian tablets. If you read the Bible, they have the same guards at the gates there. And these guards have weapons in the Bible. They got weapons in the Sumerian tablets. You better not try to go in or out. They're keeping you in, and they're keeping the people on the outside out. And then what happens? They say, well, this ain't working. We can't mate this guy. His sperm, let me check the sperm again. His sperm is working. It's swimming, but it's not working with these other beings. We got to do something else. So what they do, they take some of his own DNA. They clone they clone Eve out of him. Then they mate him and Eve. And guess what? Bingo. It worked. She gets pregnant. Oh, now we got the formula. Now we don't have to keep making these damn clones. It's a lot of work. So now Adam and Eve is the first genetically modified Homo sapien sapien that can mate with each other and have babies. So they begin to then reproduce that same experiment by taking eggs out of other women, inserting them into wombs of Anunnaki women, having them give birth and they call them the Hathors. These are the Hathors, all right? These are the Hathors that you learned about in ancient Egypt. Somebody says, do you know how our cousins got here? Yes, I do. If you talk to the ancient, the Aboriginals who I met in Australia, according to them, in ancient times, they were seeded on this planet by Pleiadians. That is their verbal handed down history for thousands of years. Not just them, also the indigenous natives of the North and South Americas. Same exact story. Interesting that this is an abandoned seed planet, that they seeded this planet with people, and then some period of time went by, they were gone. Then these Anunnaki people arrive and say, yeah, these people are just abandoned here. They don't even know what they're doing. They're just trying to learn how to develop themselves from scratch, and they took advantage of it. So back to the story. So they now have this mating thing going on. The Hathors have been doing these birthing houses, reproducing the same experiment with Adam and Eve. And now we've got, because you have to have a genetic pool. You can't create, listen to me, people. If you're a grown person right now, if you're a grown up and you still believe that 2 people can create 8 billion people, because we got 8 billion people on Earth right now, there's something wrong with you. I'm not insulting you. I'm just saying you got to rethink who you are and how high your intelligence level is. I'm just saying. Because if you go and have sex with your sister right now, you already know that baby going to be retarded. You know this for a fact. It's going to be a disabled baby, disabilities coming out the womb every time. And over time, by the 3rd or 4th generation, it's going to be all kind of malformed disabilities, right? So if we know that for a fact, then what makes you think that Adam and Eve is going to create 8 billion people? 2 people are going to create 8 billion. We got to really begin to think here. That's not what happened. The tablets tell you exactly what happened. It wasn't just Adam and Eve. They then created birthing houses where they duplicated the experiment with other Anunnaki women, giving birth to more and more of these Homo sapiens sapiens, creating a gene pool that they built up so that they can intermingle and intermate and create babies. And the proof of this is very simple. When you go into the Old Testament of the Bible, I got to check the time because I got to get on another podcast shortly. Let me tell Richard Merritt I'm almost ready. Hold on. I know he's probably texting me. Okay. He didn't text me yet. Good. When you go into the Bible, Old Testament, you find out that obviously Cain killed Abel, right? Over a dispute because one was jealous that God was having more favor over the other one's offering and so forth and so on. So out of jealousy, he killed his brother. Now what happens? God comes back, but who's the God? God is Yahweh. Who is Yahweh in the Bible? Enlil. Enlil comes back according to the ancient tablets, and he's asking like, hey, what's going on here? Because by then, you know, he realizes that he killed a brother. There's a murder going on. One of the first recorded murders in biblical history, but not in history itself, because in the ancient tablets, there's a million murders going on. And he's like, why'd you do this? And so forth. So he's telling him what happened. He's ashamed and everything else. He's kicked out of Eden. He's kicked out of the laboratory because this guy's violent now. And he goes, Cain says something very important in the biblical text. He says, the people out there will kill me. The people out there will kill me. What people? There's only supposed to be a couple of people on this planet. What people out there? If it's Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, then what people are out there that's going to kill you? There were already hundreds of thousands of people out there living, working, and everything else when Cain was actually born. And then what does God say in the Bible? He says, don't worry, I'm going to put a mark on you, I'm going to brand you so that the people out there know you my boy and they won't touch you. That's what the Bible says. That's exactly what the Bible says, right? And so they brand him. He knows that, hey, okay, don't touch this guy. He's a Canaan. That's where the Canaanites came from, right? So was the alien woman found on the moon real or fake? Somebody's asking me in the chat. That's a good question. The footage looks amazing. I just can never find any backed up evidence to prove it. Do I think it's real? I tend to believe it. My personal opinion, I believe it, but I can't say factually that it's real. I just can't do that. I'm not like a lot of these YouTube accounts that will just go run and jump on something because it sounds good and it's going to get a lot of views. I personally think it's actively real, but I can't make any claims as to it. I'm still a little bit in the gray because there's no way for me to prove that it is. I don't know what camera was used, who took the footage. You know, did the person, was it a former astronaut that escaped, or I can't really find any information on it. Until I can do that, I can't say unequivocally, yes. I can only tell you my opinion. I like the footage, all right? And so this is what happened with Cain. With Cain. So there were people already out there. God says to him, "You'll know your wife. You'll meet her. You'll meet this woman. You'll find a woman out there. You guys are gonna fall in love, and you're gonna build this whole Canaanite kingdom." That's the Bible says. So people were already out there. His wife was already outside of Eden. She existed already. There wasn't two people giving birth to 8 billion people. Stop thinking that. Stop teaching that to your kids, please. I'm begging you. It's foolishness. If you believe that, then start going having sex with your relatives right now and see what happens when your baby come out. Just see what happens. It didn't happen that way. Read these tablets. It tells you exactly what happens. These beings were mating. They had creating this mating farm, this mating laboratory called Eden. And Enlil was known as the Lord. He was known as Satan, the Lord of Eden. Satan, the Lord of Eden. Satan. You wonder where that came from? Yeah, he's Satan. The snake that was in the garden was his brother, Enki. Enki came with the knowledge to Adam and Eve and told them that they were stronger and bigger and brighter, and that when he did the genetic tinkering, that he put a little extra in them, that one day in the future they would be able to tap back into it, and they themselves could rise higher than the Anunnaki. And his brother found out about this and started calling him the devil. And that information is in the Myth of Adapa. Do they have that book down here? Oh, it's upstairs. The Myth of Adapa, which is another incredible ancient text, cuneiform text that's available. The myth. I did a whole thing with Matthew LaCroix on the Myth of Adapa. It's so powerful. In the Bible, where it's talking about the saying that, you know, the angels were jealous of human beings because they were going to be exalted higher than them. That comes from the Myth of Adapa, ancient text that's talking about human beings, us, being created at a higher level, but not knowing we were than the Anunnaki themselves. We have to tap back into our DNA. We have to tap back into our what they're calling junk and plug it back in. We have to tap into our pineal gland and our higher consciousness. We have to tap back into our frequencies, get back on the frequency mode of love, understanding, empathy, service to others, and also then tap into all of our innate gifts that we naturally have. Things that they had to enhance with technology were built into our avatar bodies. Psychic abilities, telekinesis, intuition, all these the extrasensory perceptions that we don't think we even know exist in our bodies, but they're there, just lying dormant, waiting for us to tap back into them. So did the Anunnaki create human beings? Not exactly. They genetically modified our ancestors, which turned us into Homo sapiens sapien. And in actuality, all of us are Anunnaki because we all have the DNA of these beings running through our veins today. So every person on this entire planet is an alien. You're all hybrids, all right? Anyway, that's my time for tonight, guys. Thanks for spending this time with me. I got a couple things I want to show you real quick before I pop out of here and hop on this next podcast. We have the, I'm going to get the link to this real quick. We have a special workshop coming up. It's called Unlocking the Supermind Codes by Billy Carson and 19 Keys. This is an event you just don't want to miss. Unlocking the Supermind Codes. It's going to be a mind-blowing event. 19 Keys and myself. It's going to be 8 hours, and that's going to be coming up on May 21st. You're not going to want to miss this event. It's going to be one of those deep things. We're going to teach you how to tap into your true powers, the codes that govern your supermind. I just dropped a link in the chat. Every person has a supermind. We're going to teach you how to unlock the supermind code because those superminds, your supermind has coding, and every person's code is slightly different. But how do you tap into those codes? I found my codes. 19 Keys found his codes. We learned how to access those codes. I've never talked about this in any workshop ever. And I've done hundreds of workshops and classes. I've never talked about the supermind codes. We're going to get deep into the supermind codes, and I'm going to teach you how to actually unlock your coding. How do you tap into your true gifts, your true powers? My gift, my super gift is administration. I have the gift of administration. I fully have tapped into it, accepted it, and completely embraced it, which is why I'm experiencing the benefits of abundance 24/7 in the financial matrix. There's many different matrices that exist. For me, my greatest gift has been my gift of administration. It's allowing me to build a legacy. I can also now teach you my codes for that, and you can encode that into your supermind. You can tap into that power. Everything I do, everything I put my hand on now, it excels and it succeeds. Why? Because I fully tapped into all the codes now. I've got all the codes cracked. I'm tapping in. We're going to teach you how to actually tap into your supermind codes and unlock them. It's a workshop you don't want to miss. It's going to be 19 Keys and me, Billy Carson, together, teaching you for 8 hours how to tap in and unlock the supermind codes. I dropped the link in the chat. Again, you don't want to miss this event. And last but not least, we do have a raffle. The raffle is for a Mercedes-Benz AMG. You know, we gave away the Ford, we gave away the Rolls-Royce. Now we're giving away a Mercedes-Benz AMG, a car with only 12,000 miles. It's got still 3.5 or 4 years left on the warranty, bumper to bumper. This is a car somebody can actually afford to keep. And it's an amazing, beautiful car. I'll let you see the commercial for it real quick if I can find it here. This commercial. I dropped the link to the raffle inside the comments. It'll also be in the caption of this video. If you want to join the Supermind workshop for 8 hours with 19 Keys and myself, we're going to be doing something very special. We're going to be taking people from the Supermind ticket the box office, people that bought tickets. And every month, we're going to randomly pick someone to have a personal consultation directly with us on a Zoom call. We may even fly a few people in to meet with us in person. This is going to be an amazing build to a great, great, great event, something you just don't want to miss. So get your Supermind tickets. The link is in the bio or caption of this video. Link is in my bio and other social media accounts. It's also in the comments in the chat. All right. And also underneath this video or audio, if you're listening to us as an audio podcast, you can find this as well. All right, everyone. I love you guys. Thanks for all the chat donations tonight. I'm going to hop on Black Magic 363. All right. But I love you guys. I appreciate you. Hopefully you learned something tonight. Hopefully I brought you some knowledge that you didn't know, something that add another feather to your cap. And again, I always bring my receipts. You know exactly where I got my information from. There's nothing coming off the dome here. This is real knowledge, real tangible knowledge that you can go research for yourself. All right. Love you guys. Peace.